We're developers, it seems. We've never done multi-res before, but we thought we'd just jump in the deep end. We all know the problems, climate crisis and affordability is going completely the wrong way. We've stayed out of it, knowing that the answer is density, but we've just concentrated on single residential, even though we have been very interested in multi-res. And the reason we've stayed out is because any developer we've talked to has been completely disinterested in solving the problems, and they've just been interested in leveraging our brand. So we thought, fuck it, let's just do it ourselves and take on a huge amount of risk. 8 years, it's almost killed us. Essentially, we wanted it to be deliberative design. So we use our skills that we've used with our single residential clients to help a community author their outcomes, tackle climate change centrally, be a really great catalyst for urban regeneration, financial sustainability now and into the future, and democratizing capital. So instead of going out and lending from big guys, we went to our clients and said, hey, you've got awesome houses. How about you kick in 100 grand each to help cash flow this, which will get other people into the housing market. And we were stoked by the response. So many of our clients kicked in money, and so did Leon as well. He put his money at risk, as did some of our staff and Mark and I. Found a great landowner that wanted to be part of the solution rather than cashing in and moving on. Brilliant location, right next to Brunswick Baths, right next to the library, little pocket park down the road from Berkeley Square Shopping Centre, with sustainable transport options all around the site. Tricky site itself though, because it's only 10 metres wide by 57 metres long. So that means that we could only fit 4 apartments per footprint, per floor plate. And because of that east-west orientation, we went to the expense of adding these roller blinds that not only defend the glass, but they actually are on the outside, so they defend the balcony space as well. Unlike the majority of apartment buildings where you just have these solar heat sinks that constantly need air conditioning to moderate their temperature. We brought in the community off Saxon Street, which is a really troubled street. It's got a really bad history and crime. And so the idea here is that we get lots of passive surveillance. We start to pedestrianise and get people using this space for some regeneration. And then in terms of the language, it's really a love letter to sort of the ethnic history of the northern suburbs. We end up with clients coming to us all the time, as I bet you guys do, where they say, oh, I bought this block to put a new house on. And we're like, but hang on, there's a beautiful, resilient house there. It's just not in fashion at the moment. So we're trying to stitch in with that beautiful heritage, but also that narrative exists on Sydney Road as well. If you look, there is just a huge eclectic mix of these often quirky arches with these deep verandas all up and down Sydney Road. Only 2 stories. So how do you actually have a conversation between a 6-story building and a 2-story building? Well, it's probably not by just doing another grey box that looks like it could be anywhere. So what we've done is, next to our 2 heritage facades, we put recycled brick facade, and then the rest of the facades are just mesh with an arched form where over time we'll eventually grow lots of creepers over the building. But way before we built the building, we built the community. So some of these people have been with us for years. We've got artists here, we've got school teachers, public servants, people that work at the NGV, a bunch of them work in sustainability as well. Big messages were to minimise costs now and running costs, to maximise resilience. They did want their forever home. They don't want to upgrade at some stage. Tough building that can just deal with family conditions. And they want it to be quite simple because there's a lot of creative people in there. They want it to be able to put their mark on the building. But the big thing was family. It is a growing building in terms of the number of people there. All of them knew the problems of getting a cottage and how thermally weak that is, and also how frigging expensive it is. And almost all of them said they could not spot a reasonable apartment building for family conditions. So what we did is we just grabbed the traditional terrace house plan and we just stacked it 6 stories high, and we worked with the corridor. You know, there's this argument, if you look at just what's considered a good multi-res plan, there's this argument that corridors are inefficient. But what happens is we end up with these quiet spaces directly opening onto these loud spaces. And I don't care what anybody says, that's a corridor. It's just being sold to you by a real estate agent as more living space. So we embraced it so that we can actually pull apart the loud spaces and the quiet spaces. The other thing too is common spaces should be, or they are an opportunity for community space. And of course, developers and real estate agents don't like it because they can't sell it. So you end up with these jammed leftover spaces that it looks like your neighbour's probably going to murder you rather than talk to you. So we saw that as an opportunity to actually tease that apart. Even before COVID, more and more Australians were working from home. Where do you do your hobbies? Is it on the kitchen bench or somewhere else? So we actually pulled apart the building between the 4 apartments so that we can put study spaces at the entry and basically create like front verandas. So you've got these study spaces that all look onto this shared space. So you end up with a community inside the community. And then you end up with these walkways that are common space, but they feel like a front veranda and people are inhabiting them in really interesting ways. So instead of feeling like to have a social experience, you've got to drag somebody through the building into your living room, you can have these serendipitous moments that really create community where you can lean against the front fence or sit on the steps. And throughout the building, there's those moments, whether it's just the passive surveillance chatting from one level to another or perching in the public realm next to the front gate or in the private realm, whether it is the community within a community or whether it's the big party, roof deck with the incredible views. And your living room can be your sanctuary, or it can be an absolute wreck because your kids have gone nuts, because you've got other spaces to connect with people. The bikes are right near the entry, so you don't have to drag it through a basement. So sustainable transport is really encouraged. Between those 2 red dotted lines, it's exactly the same all the way up and down the building. So efficiency, driving down costs in terms of structure and servicing in this building. There's 2 3-bedroom apartments as well. Incredibly raw, resilient materials. And so Griff in 401 was like, can I put some art in the art well? I was like, fuck yeah, man. So the owner's actually going and taking this resilience and putting their mark on it.
1 minute remaining.
Yep, sustainability. We're presenting at 3:26 on the same link if you want to join that. So I'll do a really quick overview because this is monstrously sustainable. 8.1 stars, a bunch of solar, fossil fuel free, no gas, embedded energy network, buying really cheap green energy, electric cooktop, electric barbecue. You've heard all this before. Low VOC throughout. Crazy air tightness. Like we're talking Northern European levels of air tightness. We almost doubled what we were targeting in construction. Every single home has an energy recovery unit. So we're constantly moving fresh air through each apartment while recovering the energy. We miss the light wells. So before we actually pull air through those ERVs, we're dropping the temperature. There's no air conditioning, but there's provision because we're in a climate crisis. Who knows? There's no heating. You can easily put an electric panel if you want, but this is so efficient that it's calculated to run off all of the toys and body temperature. Master switch to shut down the apartment. The water usage is super efficient. Sensitive landscaping. I wish we could talk about concrete because we've been so efficient in the use of concrete, which of course is the biggest carbon load in terms of construction. Ethical timber and steel, great transport options. There's a car share right next door, so 0 car parks. 90% of construction waste was recycled as well. Brilliant waste room. Reducing heat element effect. And one of our favourite things as well is we were really thoughtful with how we lit this building. So we didn't add to light pollution in the area.